let's back it up for one
Go
sec.
ahead.
We're not
Go
live
ahead.
or anything, so
Okay.
let's take it back.
Just waiting for you to do,
All right. Tonight, I'm joined by George Scocca, creator of Northeast.com. I want us to focus on the revolutionary that you are in terms of the online fishing community. Because what you started originally was something that had never been there before. And
Right.
you essentially took over an entire market,
Yep.
not only online, but also in print.
Right.
So let's hear about how Northeast.com started, how you got the idea for it, where it all began, and, what made you want to create it.
I'm ready to go. So here we are, 1995. AOL is just getting known. It's early in the game. Names on the internet were free at the time. I had a writer that had gotten in touch with me and mentioned the World Wide Web. And I met with him. We sat down. He showed me what it was all about. And it only took one meeting. And I instantly knew that this was the future of fishing, right? And we've only scratched the surface. But at the time, it was the absolute future because fishermen need to know things now, So I saw this platform. I bought the name Northeast.com. I actually bought a lot of good names at the time. Well, got them free. I didn't buy anything, but um, at the time, internet etiquette actually meant you could only own 50 names if you weren't using them all. So there was no law, but it was like a unwritten rule. So, it was, excuse me, it was a different place back then. You'd build a website or you add something. I mean, when I built Northeast, um, we would get emails every day from people saying what a contribution to the web. This is a great website, love your technology. And everything was uplifting, everything was positive. And I went from being a semi nerd that was publishing a print magazine to an outright nerd that lived at, there was a place called Computer City at the time. I was a regular there buying books like, they were like a foot thick, they seemed like at times. But then I would see that, I was seeing when we went to the shows, more and more people were talking about it. And by year 3, it really took off. I mean, when you think about it, just about every fishing personality there is today started on Northeast.com. From Crazy Al, you had EC Noman, you had Chris Spies, who's still around, he's still around today. You had Lep, Pete Bellella, who actually, he's still around today. He's still doing the same thing. But, the bottom line is at the time, everybody thought I was nuts. It was a fad. Oh, what is this internet thing? And all of a sudden they started hearing about it. They hear about it from their customers. And, I was finding a lot of interest in advertising on the internet. So, I decided my space would be to design and host websites. So I kind of controlled the digital field. And it was that way for many years. In fact, I built websites for captains that I'd have to print out and sometimes mail to them or fax to them because they had no idea even how to get to, they didn't know what the internet was. They had no hookup, no connection. They were totally incapable of doing it. So, but I introduced it to them a little bit at a time. Many businesses were built, on, I'm not going to say the back of Northeast, but people who supported Northeast. I'll give the Celtic Quest as one example, and Des, you'd be the first guy to tell you. If you needed to fill a boat, you just had to promote it on Northeast. So, yeah, so I felt that way. I knew that it was going to be big. I looked around me. I saw my competitors. No one was really making a move, and I put all my efforts into that.
So,
Eh,
what
Go ahead.
happened eventually with Norris? Where did that
So,
take you?
so, Norris took me in a lot of places, right? It's one of my great accomplishments in life. So, I made a gazillion friends there, many of which I still see till this day, even though I don't own Norris. Um, when we sold Norris, what happened was, I started this with my brother. I mean, it was my company, but my brother was the person who talked me into it. And, we're brothers. We were together every minute of every day. Our families were together. We had just bought a building in Smithtown, New York, moved the office there. We were there for 2 weeks. And my brother, at the age of 45, comes in and tells me he's got cancer throughout his body. Sadly, 6 months later, my brother passed away, left behind 4 kids, and kind of left me spinning. Like everywhere I looked, every note had his handwriting on it. And yeah, there's brothers and then there's brothers. I mean, brothers love each other no matter how close they are. But we were tight. The last day my brother fished, we were on the Celtic Quest, and everybody was on that boat. Well, when I say everybody, all the big names. Alberta was there, Skinner was there, Killsong was there, Togmaster was there, Canning was there. I mean, just one after the next. All the pros were there. And my brother, it was like one of the first times that a charter, you see all these group charters now. Well, I really believe that was one of the first ones. And we had food everywhere. And Desi had this little boat at the time. He was new. My brother was serving the food. I was like, Phil, freaking fish already. You haven't fished all day. He's like, all right. So he goes out. I swear to you, he sets up right next to John Skinner, and he's fishing for 5 minutes. He catches the pool fish. Well, sadly, that was the last fish he ever caught. And, I was, after he passed, I was lost, right? So it was really, even though I had a full team, I had a whole office, I had writers, I had great people behind me. I still didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. Like I don't know, I lost it for everything. So I had an investor approach me, and at that time, and it was perfect. It was a godsend, and he comes in and gives me the capital, but not only that, really helped me with the management because I was just losing. I didn't want to go to work. So he kind of carried me through that, and then I talked the investors into acquiring other websites. So we went out and we bought one in Texas, we bought one in California, one in the state of Washington.
Was this all coast?
Yes, it was all Coast Media. We had Stripers 24/7. So within a year, or no, it was longer than that. It was like 3 or 4 years. The company became very valuable, and the turnover for the investors was huge, and the pressure was on. And I'm not going to say I was forced to do something I didn't want to do because I still work with these people today. But I wish there was a way I could have kept it, right? I didn't know how much it really meant to me. So when I lost it, I still stayed involved in fisheries management. I'm also the New York State rep for reed fish. Not that we have any catch, but it's not my fault either. But I am involved there too. So I stayed as involved as I could, but I had a non-compete in place. So
These sound like a lot of obstacles. Let me take a step back for a sec. What was the pool fish that your brother won?
It was almost 11 pounds.
What type of fish?
Blackfish. It was in November. It was a nasty day. It was raining a little bit on and off, showers on and off. Never forget that day.
So he outfished Skinner and Al.
Oh yeah, he was right next to Skinner. John will tell you. He tells me that story all the time.
This episode is dedicated to your brother Phil.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's an epic story. So
Yeah.
that leads me to my next question. What did you have to sacrifice along the way besides all the challenges of, dealing with competing websites and people that wanted to buy you out and everything else? Like, what types of challenges did you face personally in terms of people hating on you, in terms of,
Well,
having to sacrifice time away from your family, stuff like that you had to do in order to get where you got?
Right. Well, I'm going to take you all the way back to Nori Saltwater, right? That was the print magazine when I first started. I was working for someone, I was making a lot of money. The guy went out of business. I was sitting there holding the bag. I had a lot of bills. I had to do something. And I got on the phone one day and I called around to tackle shops. I literally did it this way. And I asked them what they thought of the fishermen, because at the time, that was the only thing. And I was like, because I was a big fisherman. I should take it back. I had a Grady White. I fished all the time. I had really gotten into fishing. So I was like, I know a little bit about publishing. Let me see if I could pull this off. And when I called the tackle shops, they all kind of said the same thing, that, well, not that they were bad or anything, but that, it was the only thing there. Like, they had no choice. So, and not in a bad way, but just that, they had no choice. There was no option. So I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this. So I go out. I literally remortgage the house, the old story. I board off the downstairs so I can have a little office down here. And I started Northeast, and I literally wrote it from cover to cover, the first issue. Well, me and Joe Tyson. And then we went out and delivered every single copy. I mean, it consumed every minute of every day. I would work from 6 a.m. to late at night, and I was totally broke at the time. I can remember going to the New York Boat Show. We'd have a booth there, and I'm giving away a free magazine, but we had a $20 subscription if people wanted to get it mailed to them. And we would go in and I'd say, man, I better sell one of them or I'm not getting home. I was never forget, I was totally broke. And, the first time I went out, there were a lot of boats pushing back, tackle shops. I'm not going to name anybody, but I had people throw magazines at me. It was, I learned a lot, for an outsider. Nobody knew who I was. So, you give up a lot. It took a lot of time. And then, but back then it was different. There weren't haters. There was no real platform for haters. And on the internet, like I saw it evolved into that. But in the beginning, it wasn't that way. People just, were always nice to each other. If they had nothing to say, they wouldn't say anything, But all that has changed. But, look, we all go through stuff, right? So later on in life, right after I sold the company, so here I am, I'm sitting pretty, I got money in the bank, I sold the company, but I'm lost, right? Because all of a sudden I'm not fishing media. I don't have that voice anymore. And I'm like, you did a lot with that voice. What the heck are you going to do now? And I didn't have to worry too much. Next thing you know, I had a stroke. So it took me a while. Luckily, I was lucky that my wife, the day before that, at the same exact time I had the stroke, I was in the middle of a lake fishing, Blydenburg Lake. And I always fish there in the spring. And so I had a stroke. My wife got me to the hospital, and I got this crazy shot they call a TPA shot. I had the nurse come up to me, the doctor rather, look me right in the eyes and say, look, you have a blood clot in your brain, and we have a thing, it's called TPA. She said there's a high mortality rate, but I believe it can cure you. So I was like, well, what's a high mortality rate? She's like, 1 in 4 people die. I was like, okay, I don't like those odds. So I asked my wife to ask around. Long story short, I went for it. And the weirdest thing about it was, like, it was my right arm, and I was laying in the bed, and before they gave me a shot, I was like swinging my arm, and there was a male nurse in there, and he goes to me, "You look like you're casting." I go, "It's funny you say that because that's what I'm trying to do, but I can't because I was paralyzed on my right side." I go, "But I can't." I go, "What, you fish?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, all the time." I said, "Hey, did you ever hear of Northeast?" He goes, "Oh, what are you kidding? I'm on there all the time." And I don't remember his username, but he was a person I knew. I was like, oh, my God. So he goes, I swear I'll never forget this. He comes over to me. He goes, "I'm going to hold your hand through this shot." So I didn't know what a big deal it was. The next thing I know is, like, I don't know, it goes from just the nurse being there to like 15 people in there. They've got all these machines going, and everybody's looking at me. And I was like, they think I'm going to die. It kind of like hit me, you know? So I was like, all right, give it to me. And with that guy holding my other hand, it gave me a shot. And I healed to the point. And 2 days later, I was back at Blydenburg Park. So I made it through that.
2 days later, you were fishing.
Yeah, I was fishing. And the weirdest thing, now I'm fishing there, and this dog comes running up to me. My wife was there. Obviously, she wouldn't let me go by myself. So she was there. And this dog comes running up to us, and a woman is calling the dog, and it turned out to be my nurse from 2 days earlier when I had the stroke. She was like, "What the heck are you doing here?" You know, I meet her in the middle of the woods. So I thought that was pretty weird. So I had that happen. And, then not too long after that, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. I'm a non-smoker. And that was, it was what everybody says it is. So you're always scared. I'm coming up to that 50th year now, though. So I feel, I'll knock on wood, I feel pretty confident that I've beaten it. But, again, I've lost, I lost all my saliva glands. I can't eat good food anymore. There's a list of things, but I got to tell you, I can still get in my truck, run down to the marina, jump on my boat, and go fishing by myself if I want anytime. So I'm fine with everything. And now, I have the new website, and I'm just feeling good about things. And I'm back involved in fisheries management, which, that's another thing where you're making a sacrifice, right? So you're out there. I'm a resource first kind of guy, right? But at the same time, I don't want recreational fishermen to lose the right to fish. A lot of people don't understand what's happening today. And it's scary to me that we were able to move mountains, speaking 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But today, no one understands the issues. They don't know them. They don't really want to get involved. I mean, when I look at the board of the New York Sport Fishing Federation, I'm seeing the same people that were there like forever. There's no new blood. Most anglers have no clue what's going on in the background. Like right now with striped bass. I've been here before, and I've had to take a position that actually was opposed by my advertisers. How'd you like to have to get up in front of a group of advertisers who want to fish at 28, and you only wanted to go to 1 at 28? Well, they didn't like me too much then. They got over it, and I was right, because 3 years later, everybody went to 1 at 28. So, but, that's one example, of getting haters when you're trying to help things. I had that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, continue.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, when push comes to shove, I'm a resource first guy, right? But I learned very early on about fisheries management and politics involved and everything you need to do to move the needle and actually make a difference. And there was a time, it was 1992, when myself and other leaders, fisheries leaders, people like from the Montauk Surfcasters and those guys, we all got together, and something you never see today, by the way. So we all got together and we pushed a bill to make striped bass a game fish. We managed to get the bill through the Senate unopposed, and then it was hung up in the Assembly. And we would have rallies that 500 people would show up. We flew a plane, we paid, and we had a plane that flew a sign down the beach on 4th of July weekend that Billy Joel kills striped bass. Because I don't know if you know it, but he was a big advocate for commercial fishermen. And I had a run-in with him on the beach, and it ended up on the news, and it was...
Tell me more about that. What happened there?
So what happened was I was in the middle of the game fish movement, right? And
on
he
the
was
beach,
opposed.
though. On the beach, yeah.
So it was going to be So what happened was, my issue of northeast saltwater that came out on the front and back was a spread of a whole seine with 10,000 pounds of dead fish that were left on the beach. And I put that on the cover, and I said this was from, taken in Montauk in 1971. And ironically, I hear that Billy Joel is going to do a demonstration out in the Hamptons. So I grab a bunch of magazines, I jump in my car, I run out there, and all the commercial guys are out there, the the whole gang. And all of a sudden, like, I'm going to say a half a dozen Hummers come driving up on the beach. Now, they have a dory there, which they launched illegally, right? So picture this. So they're launching a boat illegally to target striped bass. They've already told the DEC that they were going to do it, right? So I get there, and I walk up, and I say to the officer, I go, what's going on? So he says, oh, well, they're doing this and this. And I said, well, why don't you stop it? So he goes, well, he says, they haven't actually done anything. So I said, look, I go, if somebody's going to rob a bank and you see them with the gun, do you let them go in and rob the bank first, or do you stop them? So as the net was being retrieved, I kind of jumped in the middle of the net. And I was like, I'm the only person here that's legal. I said, I'm standing on a public beach, and these people are illegally fishing, and you're letting it happen.
So you swam out. You swam out into the middle of the net.
No. I stood on the beach as they were pulling the net up. See, the way it works is they send a dory out. It goes in a circle, comes back to the beach, and then they pull it in, with a power winch on the truck. So I don't know what they ended up. There was like 4 or 5 bass in there, and Billy Joel with his gloves on picked one of them up, and then they wrote them all these tickets. So at that time, though, I was on CNN, I was on all these stations. I was the only person there talking about the recreational fishermen.
How drunk was Billy Joel at that time?
Yeah. I think he really was drunk. I really do. It's funny you say that, because I said to one of the DEC guys, you ought to have him blow right now, because I think he's drunk.
What was he saying?
Oh, forget it. He was trying to he totally ignored me. He was saying we need to keep the culture of Long Island. He was into this whole culture thing, and I was trying to, stop the sale. Like, you guys have no idea what that fishery was like. I mean, there were no bass. You didn't see a striped bass. If you saw one, I mean, I barely got pictures of him.
So who was he there with? Like, who was he
So
associated
he
with
was
that
there
he
with
ended
his
up on the
entourage.
like?
Go
How
ahead,
did
I'm
he
sorry.
end up on the beach like that? Like,
They escorted him on the beach. Look,
who
in the
these guys that had a little dinghy that were rounding up like 5 stripers? They got him to come onto the beach, like, or was it just
Oh yeah, this was all pre-planned.
who planned it? Who
Um,
was behind it? Who was the
this
propaganda
guy named
machine?
well, probably look, I don't know for sure, but I believe it's Arnold Leo played a role in it. He's
Who
like
is it?
their
Who is it?
spokesman. His name is Arnold Leo.
What does he do?
Well, he's like I kind of never really understood. He's like into, I don't know, he does shows or something in the city. And he's also a spokesman for the commercial fishermen. I actually did a 1 hour TV debate with him on News 12
Really? What year was
on
that?
striped bass. Oh my God, that was probably 92 or 93.
And was that during the moratorium?
Yeah, but remember, it was a rec It was not a rec moratorium. It was a commercial moratorium.
So you and him squared off.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Who came out on top?
Well,
Honestly,
I mean, honestly, I feel like I kicked his butt, and I know he wasn't happy when we left. So, but the guy.
but he knew Billy Joel somehow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This guy's plugged in, Leo. He's been there like forever. You see,
he's got lifetime tickets to MSG to see Billy Joel.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Do you know what's funny about Billy Joel? I've seen a lot of concerts at MSG. I've been to probably 100 concerts in my life. The only concert I've ever seen the entire crowd sitting down for is a Billy Joel concert.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you,
it's sad. It's a sad thing to see. But I'm getting off topic. Anyway,
right.
you got into it with Billy on the beach.
When we sent that plane,
you sent the plane after that?
Yeah. So what happened was we sent the plane, and it said Billy Joel kills striped bass. Now, what I had no clue of was he had an album coming out, right? So after the 4th of July weekend, I get a call, and it's his publicist. And she's like, look, he's added his whole thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's not taking sides. He understands how you feel. But he's not going to be speaking, or he's not going to be involved with striped bass anymore. I was like, this is great. We just shut up Billy Joel. But yeah, and when he went to get the ticket, right? So they get the ticket, they give him a court date. So at this point, now everybody knows
he got a
about
ticket.
it.
What do you get a ticket for?
Oh
again?
yeah, he got a ticket for keeping an illegal striped bass.
Okay, DC got him on the spot.
Oh yeah, right there. They told me what was going to happen.
What was
happened.
he saying when they were ticketing him?
Oh, nothing. He wanted the ticket. It was all part of the protest. You know?
So was he like? Did he say like, "Give me the ticket"? Give it.
No, he didn't say anything. Look. Everybody knew what was going to happen before it happened, except for us. Except for me. But I could see it was well orchestrated. I mean, who drives? I mean, they allowed them to do so many illegal things. I'm like, they're driving on the beach. They're striped bass fishing, and they're doing this because he wanted to squash my bill. And let me tell you, at the time we had a split. We had a Republican Senate, and we already passed it through the Senate, and then we had to deal with a Democratic Assembly. And they had helped me before do other bills, and I thought I was going to get this done without like cake, But because of the heat, I believe, from the Hamptons, we never managed to get it done. They did make me a good offer, and looking back, I should have taken it. They said that they would lock in the commercials at 150,000 pounds. And now that they're over 600, I was like, I should have taken it. But, I wanted to make it a game fish at the time. I was a kid, and I hadn't lost the bill yet, But, yeah, I mean,
when you say you were a kid, how old were you when you were making these moves?
I was late 30s, early 40s. Late 30s,
What
38,
what were you
37,
what were you
38.
doing in your late 20s, early 30s? What was the move?
Oh, I was doing a little bit of everything. So I kind of bounced around. I was a salesman, and I actually spent a couple of years in Florida. I lived in Manhattan for a couple of years, I had a gorgeous place on West 4th Street, 2 bedroom with 2 parking lots, cost like $600 a month. Me and another guy was splitting it.
When did you finally start making a full-time living off fishing?
I did that in 1989. 1989, I started. I told my wife, I go, I'm mortgaging the house. She's like, what? I go, I need some capital and I want to do this thing. She's like, but you don't know anything about publishing. I go, don't worry, we'll get through it. And it was a weekly. And let me tell you something.
And let's talk about
That,
publishing for a second. How many books
yeah.
have you been behind the publishing of?
Well, we published one of John Skinner's books, and then there was another fishing book. Oh my God!
When you say
can't remember.
we, do you mean you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean us, the company. So,
But your company, you.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, me. Well, what happened was, again, think about it. Nobody even knew who John Skinner was, including myself. He sent me a letter once. He saw the magazine was out, and I advertised for writers, and he sent me in a great letter with a picture with him with a 50-pounder and his phone number. And I called him up. I go, "You got the job," So, so he stayed on, and John's had quite a successful career at that. But we did that book, and then I did another fishing book, and I can't remember what it is. I'm sorry, I burnt out. But I do, and then I did the magazine that came out every freaking week. Let me tell you something. That was not easy. That was a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces.
You got to come up with content every single week.
Yeah, it wasn't hard. I hired like 8 people to call up all the tackle shops and party boats and charter boats. And then they would type it out. Then they would fax it to my office, and we would have to re-enter it. And at that point, there was so many mistakes. You had it proofed, reproofed, and computers were not like they are today. Like when you went to go to page 1 to page 2, you could go get a cup of coffee and come back, and the computer would still be loading. So I'm telling you, it was not easy. I remember I used to say, "Wow, I can't wait for the day," But yeah, so the publishing thing was great. We did what we had to do. We told the they were adding 20,000 copies, and that's what we put out every week. And I'll tell you, I could have put out 40,000. That's how fast that they would go. So I had great support. Again, there were times where I had to thread the needle between fisheries management and the industry. I actually got the tackle shop, it's still together. It's called NIF, the New York Fishing Tackle Trade Association. I called the first meeting with those guys. I called them all up independently, and I was like, "Look, I know you guys are competitors, but you need to start talking, or they're going to be taking fisheries away from you." So they all organized, and they've actually, they have the ear of a lot of good people. So, and I'm always in touch with them. John Mantione from J&J Tackle, he does a lot of their work.
So you've probably, spent a lot of time out on the water. A lot of people that are hardcore fishermen that have spent a lot of time out on the water. What are some of the craziest stories that you've heard in terms of people being tested by nature when they're out in the ocean, and sometimes
there's
barely
so
surviving,
many, right?
Sometimes never surviving?
Well, the worst one was never surviving, and that was when the 3 anglers were lost in the Hudson Angler Tournament. I think it was in, I don't even remember, but It was before 9/11, I know that. And they went out, and these guys were on a 26-foot regulator, and they had extra fuel. There was a lot of discrepancy about the weather boat, whether or not they should have called off the tournament. Like they used like a 63-foot boat as the weather boat or something.
Was it a striper tournament? What was it?
And, no, this was a offshore shark tournament.
Okay.
And these
What
guys.
time of year?
It was in the summer.
Okay.
So it was like June.
Okay.
But they caught a bad day, But what happened was I was somehow, I forget how this happened, but I was getting copies, and they were available, of Coast Guard transmissions. I forget exactly what it was, but the long story short, I could hear the guy on the mic saying, "This is the Elena," and he tried to give numbers, but he kept going out, but he kept saying, "This is the Elena," and they didn't know that the Elena was in trouble until it got dark. So I'm like, when I listened to it, I heard it, and I'm like, but he's saying it. But when I spoke to the Coast Guard in their defense, they said the only reason you're hearing it is because you know it. If you ask people that don't know the name of the boat, you'll find out that they're not going to be able to tell. And that was true.
How did they go down?
Nobody knows till this day. Nobody knows. But
my guess is they were never found?
No.
What's your guess?
My guess is everybody says that they were overloaded. They had extra fuel on the boat. I always hate that,
It's too heavy and they took a wave?
Yeah, I think that's all that's got to happen. Now, let's say you got your fuel cans in the back, and somehow you cover your scupper and you take water on. You're not able to do anything at that point. So, I don't know what happened, but it happened. Whatever it was, it happened fast because they were not able to talk. They were not able to get on that on the radio. So it must have happened fast. So that was it.
A lot of people put their lives on the line for this sport, and it's pretty incredible. That's why.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm totally opposed.
I'm opposed, but I'm also someone who has put their life on the line for it. So.
Well, we end up there sometimes.
We end up there. We definitely
without
do.
trying. All of a sudden, next thing you know,
you're there.
And I could give you an example of a stupid one. I fish in April like a nut. I go, and not too far from here, there's an underpass on the Jericho Turnpike, and they stock the area with, little brookies, so I go there. So I had gone fishing at the lake, and this is like right past the lake. And I got to walk in and go into this certain spot. And I'm fishing in there for about 2 hours, 3 hours. And I suddenly realize now that the tide has come in so much that I can't even walk back the way I came. And it was still another like 3 foot of tide to come in. And because it dropped down. So there was a wall there, and this was after my stroke, and I wasn't really that fit, and I wasn't sure of myself or anything. And I had to climb up that wall to get out of there, and I did. And I remember I was laying out, and I had my eyes closed because I was all stressed out. And I'm lying out, and this kid comes up, "Mister, are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, sometimes, like you say, it happens, but then there's people that do dumb things, look, if you get your anchor stuck and you're in 2 to 4 footers or 3 to 5 footers, according to the boat that you're in, if you take them over the bow and your anchor's stuck, it's time to give it up.
Yeah, cut it. What's
the
what's the dumbest tragedy that you've heard of?
Well, I'm not going to call this dumb, but it's the worst
I
tragedy
mean,
I
not
heard of.
dumb, but I mean, for lack of a
This,
better word, people
yeah,
weren't
but
using their head, and nature got the best of them because they underestimated it. That's what I mean by dumb.
yeah. Well, I don't know for sure how this happened, but there was a kid out in Montauk who they were getting ready to pull up the anchor, and somehow his dad got wrapped in the rope, and the guy drowned. And that to me was one of the saddest things because people, you know how they are on the internet. They start writing stuff,
Wait,
and
they were pulling up the anchor?
what happened was he was trying to put the anchor on the ball and pull it up, and his leg got wrapped around the anchor, around the line. So he got pulled in, and the kid didn't know it. And then all of a sudden, the kid realized it. By the time he backed down and his father came up, he was drowned.
So the kid, his son, was driving the boat.
16-year-old kid.
Was
Yeah,
driving the boat. His dad was handling the anchor. His dad went in the
yeah,
water
yeah,
and came up dead.
yeah. And then,
Oh my god.
yeah, horrible. And what made it so worse was the people wrote about it on my website. And then all of these idiots are like, oh, the kid shouldn't have done that, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, what if this kid's reading this stuff? And sure enough, man, that day he went on there and he wrote the most gut-wrenching post I've seen in my life. And I was like, whoa, man. I should have deleted that thread. I knew I should have. I still think about that. But
What year was that?
that was like 96, 97. But you hear of a lot of crazy stuff. I'll tell you a funny one. How would you? I I get somebody comes to my office telling me about this huge black drum that they caught. The thing is like 50 or 60 pounds, and I don't know who this guy is. And he's talking to me. And he's like, "Do you want to see it?" And I'm like, "See it?" He goes, "Yeah, I got it in my truck." And I'm thinking to myself, he's got to have a huge cooler for a freaking 56-pound black drum, right? He opens the trunk up and the fish is just laying in there, stiff as a board, all dried out. It stunk like high heaven, and he had it in the trunk of his car.
What
And
he
I
ca-
looked like
he caught it 3 days earlier? What?
he caught it a couple of days earlier.
Oh my god.
I said to him, I go, "What are you doing with this thing?" He goes, "Well, gee, I don't know. What do you think I should do?" I go, "Don't throw it in my dumpster, but go find a dumpster to throw it in." I go, because it's not worth anything but that. I mean, people are nuts, man. You wouldn't believe. I mean, and I heard a lot of funny stories. When I say funny, I mean, two kids they enter a shark tournament. They're in a 21-foot boat, and I got pictures of the whole thing, right? They hook up a Mako. The Mako runs at them. It does a jump, lands, and it heads straight at the boat. And this guy swears, even though the Mako has a brain of a pig, this guy swears that the fish was coming after him. He goes, I could see him. I was looking in his eyes. And I guess the fish must have realized it was going to hit the boat. It goes airborne, hits the kid in the chest, lands in the cockpit of the boat, totally green, flopping all over the place, busted up the boat, flops over the other side, swims away with the rod, reel, everything. And all they were doing was hugging each other. It was so scary.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly, George, I couldn't imagine a better way to close out than that story because we're at time. But
That's great. Well,
man,
listen, thank
that
you.
is something else. We might have to do a part two because
Yeah,
it
I'm
sounds
fine
like
with
you
that.
have got some wild stories, and I really appreciate you joining us tonight for episode 18, I think, of the Brooklyn Fishing Club podcast. And we're going to keep it moving. Thank you to all our fans and followers at Brooklyn Fishing Club on Instagram. Everybody who's listening, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. George, I'll talk to you soon, man. Have a good night.
Okay, thanks, pal. Bye-bye.
Bye.